Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kiss and Tell podcast, where we keep the conversation going. I'm your host, Deanaletta Seif, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Marla Stewart. Marla is a certified sexologist, a published author, educator, current PhD student, as well as the owner of Velvet Lips, a sex education venue offering client coaching, workshops, and events. Hi, Marla, and welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hi. Yes. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, this is so exciting. And I feel like we're matching. You can't see my
I
dress.
know, right? I was like, we got a little floral thing going on
Yeah,
here. It's good, a little
nice and
tropical.
summery. Yeah.
Yes.
So I am so excited for today's discussion. And before we kind of go into our conversation, I thought maybe we could start by just talking about you and your journey into the field of sexology.
Sure, absolutely. I feel like my journey really kind of was maybe accidental, but also maybe put in place. Like part of it, I think, was, my mom being what I would call a sex positive parent, even though
Mhm.
she was really just fearful because she didn't want me to become a teenage, mom like she was. And so I think educating me and just really letting me know about my body and my needs, wants, desires, I think really helped me to understand who I was as a sexual being, really as a, age appropriately, as I grew up. And when I got to college, I wanted to study more into human sexuality, of course. And my friends would come to me for sex advice because I was just like, my mind was always focused on
Hey.
sex. It was like sex, 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 sex. And so they were always coming to me for advice. And so I was just like, okay, you know, this is where this is what I need to do, right? Like I need to help people. And I think seeing Dr. Ruth on stage, as a young person, I was like, gosh, like this is a job, this is a career. I can make this into my job. So essentially
Wow.
that's, when I got into graduate school is what I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really incredible. Not all of us have a sex positive parent or adult in our corner, but it was very powerful for you, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, like you said, a lot of people don't, right? And especially in our field, sometimes people get into our field because they're like, I didn't have that education and I went and had
Mhm.
to go educate myself. And so for me, it's just like I'm glad I had the education, but also to help people get more comfortable with themselves because there's so many things that people have taught through their sexual experiences, through all the different social institutions that we learn lessons from, all the different sexual scripts that we get from people. So it can be really kind of daunting if you don't know the direction that you need to go in. So I'm really thankful
Right.
that I got into this, occupation where I can not only express who I am but also help people who want to be as comfortable as I am with my sexuality. So that's
Right.
yeah, the goal. And have orgasms, have good orgasms.
Eh, all beautiful goals. Yes.
Mhm.
When I imagine working with clients in this capacity, I can see that for many folks, they're here because they're looking for that self-exploration, self-knowledge. And with that desire, there often comes a lot of pain and loss as well. But
Yeah.
for you, what do you see as some of the most common concerns that people come to you for?
Yeah, some of the most common concerns I see are desire discrepancy. I feel like a lot of us in this industry see a lot of that, right? Someone has very higher libido or wants to have sex more than the other person does. And of course, there's usually other factors that roam into that relationship-wise, communication issues, stressors, all those other things. So for me, it's desire discrepancy, I think, is like number one. Also, desire like like overall desires of what somebody wants versus what somebody doesn't want. Like I get a lot of like, I want to be freakier in bed. And then the person's like, I'm fine with like the sex we have, right? So someone wanting more like sexual adventure or wanting to explore more around their sexuality than the other person in the relationship. So that is what I think I come into across more like so people wanting to explore more, see what's out there, and people who are trying to be less inhibited with their
Mhm.
sexuality for whatever reason. Um, and what else? I also see clients who are interested in kink. So again, clients who want to learn more about themselves, about open relationships, about kink and BDSM. I get a lot of those people who are just trying to navigate what that looks like for them, especially if they've been in a monogamous dynamic for a long time. What does it mean to open the relationship, or what does it mean to be kinky, or what does it mean to you have them both, um, or what does it mean to explore the relationship and not necessarily name it kink, even though that's kind of what it is, you
Mhm.
know? Uh,
Yeah,
so those are kind of like the top three, I guess, things that are the most salient in my work.
right. And I think the perhaps the common thread in those different places one could be and reasons for coming is just having that creative freedom to kind of design your sex life, design your relational life and what you want.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I love that Emily Nagassi names it in the book, the Come Together book. Just like you have to get together and talk about these things, and you have to design your own life.
Mhm.
And that's the way long-term couples generally last, is of course being kind to one another, have loving, respectful communication, but also designing the life that they want together, not one person leading the march, per se. Because it's usually, that one person that's like, I want to explore more. And the other person's like, I got to do this, So hopefully you can not deal with that ahead of time. But a lot of times we get into relationships without knowing that full person or having a full breadth of understanding of what it means. Or we shut down our own personal feelings because we don't want to be alone, you know?
Yeah.
And that can also be detrimental to us if we're not honoring our own sexual values, our own sexual boundaries and desires.
Hmm. Yeah, and it just becomes how do we talk about this? If I'm in a partnered situation, I want to go down this path. Perhaps you don't, how do we respect each other in this conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
After 2 decades as a sexual professional, have there ever been moments where you have had to unlearn something about sexuality? I know you already come from a really solid foundation, having your mother, guide you openly.
Things I've had to unlearn. This is a really great question. Um, yeah, some things I've had to unlearn was that, or one thing I would say I'm currently unlearning is the fact that some people need um, well, everybody usually needs variety and unpredictability, but some people don't want you to talk about it, right? So what I'm unlearning is that like because I'm a very much a direct communicator and I'm just like, what do you like? What don't you like? Tell me more. I noticed that lately in my own personal journey is that like some people just kind of want to explore and kind of let go without having the conversation. And and it's funny because I feel like I kind of learned this lesson back when I was in my 20s, in the sense of like, oh, people just explore. And then you kind of take a step back and say, like, is this something I want more of? Is this something I want less of? But like I was actually really thrilled and surprised by the thing. And here I am in, 40s, 20 years later, my 40s, and it's just like, huh, like I forget that people love the element of that surprise and kind of want to honor that, but also be in the realms of consent and trust and vulnerability, to not harm someone in a way um, that would be detrimental to that trust, that vulnerability,
Right.
um, that experience. Yeah. So.
Yeah, a lot to balance there, trying to create that safe container that feels
Hmm.
expansive but has safety protocols and a general idea of where are we headed with this? What do we want? I've heard a lot of educators giving workshops trying to kind of make these conversations sexy and hopefully get people to a place of, I guess, thinking about it a slightly different way. Like, hey, like it doesn't have to feel like some kind of chore, and it can be an opener, maybe. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think when people have uh are really invested, right, in their own lives, I think that's when the magic can happen. That's when the transformation can really, really take place.
Hmm. Yeah. Going back again to your client work, um, I'm curious, is there ever like resistance with clients when perhaps you notice something different than maybe what they identified as their reason to come in?
Oh, absolutely. That happens all the time. Because, doing this work for so long, you hear kind of like the same stories kind of over and over again. And so I remember I had this couple, and their first session, I mean, maybe one or two sessions in with me, I was like, have you ever thought about non-monogamy? And like this would be a way to get both of your needs met. And they
Mm,
were like, no, 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 no. And then like a year and a half later, they were like, yes, okay, yes, we're gonna have to make some changes. Right. They're like, we're
well,
thinking about opening up our relationship. And I was like, oh my God. But I mentioned this a year and a half ago, right? So a lot
yeah,
of the challenges we were facing, we could have just navigated it more easily if they would have been more um, open to changing their relationship dynamic, but that's hard to do, right? Because it's hard to unlearn monogamy when you've been monogamous for 25 years or whatever it is, right? So it's sort
oh
of
yeah.
like, okay, but now you want something different, and that other person is not willing to do the thing that you want them to do. So we've got to
Mhm.
change it somehow, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't, this is, yeah, so I can, navigate them with that. So I was able to kind of help them along with that. And of course, they did some recreational drugs that I'm sure also helped them realize, have this, different neural pathways that were nice and fired up for them to kind of see a different way of living life. And so, and experiencing their sexual lives. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Wow, because you as the helping professional, you can perhaps envision like where could this couple be, in a year, in 18 months, etc. But they're kind of still stuck in the now, like what's the pressing issue? But you have
Hmm.
that knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's hard, right? Because it's hard to be like, I make the suggestion, but it's like, even if I know this will work, I have to respect the client's wishes because ultimately I want to believe that the client knows how to move. I'm just helping them get more clarity. You know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think the best kind of treatment or client professional relationship is when the client is invested and making those decisions versus being led along a path.
Right. Yeah.
What I had really wanted to discuss today with you is the future of sex education. We're living in, a time of so much advanced technology and a really media saturated landscape. But maybe we could just start talking about, where do you see us going?
Like as sexuality professionals?
I think as a culture, really, like just even for,
Mm.
layman folks and their sex education, their exploration.
I think we're going to return back.
Mm,
I think we're going to return back to people seeing other people in person and that being more nuanced, right?
right.
Because I think a lot of times, yes, we meet people virtually in the virtual space, but like if we were to be friends, like I need to know maybe how your hugs are. I need to know your energy. I need to know what you smell like. Can I even bear what you smell like? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so a lot of times we forget these things. And even when I talk to people who are dating, on the apps and online, I'm just like, yeah, you have maybe have all this discussion. You've been talking to them for months, but have you smelled them? Do you know what they sound like in bed? Is it going to annoy you? What about those
Yeah.
other values and boundaries that you have? Are they gonna be able to honor those in person? Like, the connection for me is real life. And so I've seen, doing 20 years of events and seeing, I mean, we were attacked back in the day when I first started my business, as sexuality professionals. I was like, okay, we have to do this and we have to do this, to navigate all of these things. But what I've noticed is that even from the pandemic, right? We were like, oh my gosh, okay, there's a new way of connection, a new way online, sure. And that still resonates, but more and more people want to be in person. They want that
Mm,
energy of new people. And so I do see that kind of making a comeback, especially as we see some of these new laws that are being put into place for like no social media for like people 16 and under. We see that in Australia and the UK now, and now, I'm sure it's probably going to spread maybe to Canada. I don't know. The US, we don't know here,
yeah.
um, but I do see people like relying on like AI and technology heavily now. Um, and I think there's going to come to a point where there's going to be a reversal on that. I think more people are just going to have to meet in person. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah. Um, but right now, I think as a culture, we can embrace the technology now, but remember that it is a tool and not the end all be all. And I think that is the hard thing because people are using, Chat GPT as therapists, right? And then,
Hmm.
Chat GPT is hyping them up, and because that's what AI is designed to do, right? It should hype a person, it's like, hey, you're doing great, you're doing this, and yeah. And that is really kind of faulty because as a human being could be like, let's take a look at what you're doing. That's not really like they like people like to play devil's advocate and whatnot because people have the capacity to think in a much broader way than be your hype up bestie as AI
Yeah.
is. So and AI is often wrong with things too. And so um if we're especially relying on that as far as our sex education, that's not going to be good. Um,
Mm,
and so I'm kind of proud of the people who do reach out to me and are like, I want to learn something like in person. And I'm like, yeah, your AI is not going to be like, okay, let's breathe together, or I feel your energy, or let me feel the erotic tension that you want to give to your lover. Like, I want to feel that.
mm,
So, you can't get that with tech. So,
Yeah.
you
That's
know, it
impossible.
yeah, it is. It is. But people think it's possible, right? People want to feed
Right.
into it because of their loneliness, or because of, um, or maybe because of the positive embrace that they are having with technology. And I remember, I'm not sure if you ever saw this, but there was a guy and he has all those real dolls, those real dolls.
I've seen so many documentaries about that, so
Okay.
possibly.
So there was one guy who had a few of them, and he would just dress them up and talk to them. He would talk to them like they were real people. And I'm just like, just imagine if if he could develop his social skills enough that he could go outside and talk to real people. But something around his confidence probably says it's easier for me to talk to people who can't talk back, right?
Mm,
Um, and you know, and that's going to be hard, especially if you're going to be going out in the world working or doing whatever it is, you need to interact with other people. So, um, and it can be detrimental also to people's sex lives. I had a client who was watching porn 7 to 8 hours a day,
mm,
and so like when you're in that much invested in technology, that means you're bonding with the tech instead of bonding with the real person. So when he got to be in real life with a real live woman, he was like, oh, and it was just like, wow,
mm.
So um I think it's super, super important that we understand how to develop these social skills, what it, and I think we're going to come around. We're going to come around because people are going to realize like you can't develop social skills via AI or via the robots, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Right. It's like maybe people have to interact up to a point where they start to see, there's some limitations that I don't like about this, or maybe it just gets boring. I don't know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm wondering now, can I ask Claude or something to see if to develop social skills? I'm like, now I'm curious. Anyway.
You would get some kind of output for sure. And I think that's like one of the big pools for a lot of people is like, hey, I can do this thing, and usually it's free. I can do it anywhere I am on my phone, on my computer. And no matter what situation I bring to it, I'm going to receive a response, which is,
hmm
when I compare that to maybe one of the, let's say, older ways to find sexual information, you might read like a New York Times article about sex,
Right.
here's some books,
I
pick
used to have
one.
a New York Times, yeah, subscription. Yeah, yeah, it's
Right.
wild. And the absorption of how much information we're taking in too. So that can also be, I feel like that's also limiting our ability to connect because, we're having this kind of man-made ADHD happening with the trying to, with social media and all that stuff. So that can be challenging as well.
Right. And if you're just learning about sexuality, if you come in and you don't really have a strong foundation, you don't know what's misinformation or, what's the
Exactly.
other side. Yeah. But what's your suggestions, I guess, for people who are like, I'm going to use AI, I'm going to use these tools. How can we use them, I guess, responsibly and in a way that is truly serving our needs?
Yeah, I would say use them for needs that are trivial, that won't affect your life in a way that like you're dependent on it. You know what I mean? So um, maybe you use AI to edit a paper, or maybe you use AI to, like you just said, like I said earlier, like using it as a tool, rather than to be dependent on it. But um, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Oh, yeah, just any suggestions you may have for clients or people in general who are using it to access information about sex and intimacy.
Mm. Oh, so if you are using AI to access information about sex or intimacy, sex and intimacy, relationships, all that stuff, AI is usually getting it from somewhere. So what I encourage you to do is the resources that AI is pulling up, that you also look into those resources. So if there's something in
Mhm.
particular that you are maybe you had sex with a covert narcissist. Okay, so maybe you look up covert narcissism in sex and you see an expert that is dealt with this situation. Then you look up that person and see what else are they doing to help you with whatever it is. So maybe they have some free resources, maybe they have some individual coaching or therapy or something. So I encourage people to use AI as a tool in a sense of find whatever it is that you need, or use the AI to find it, but see what resources that the AI is using, go back so you trace those resources, and then see what professionals are behind those resources, because all AI is doing is pulling it from all of our brains, right? So we're
Yeah.
sticking our brains and things in AI, we're putting our writing in AI. So it is a way for AI just to really connect to our brains so that we um, see who's the professional out there that can really take us on, and see that professional or sign up for their email list or whatever it is, like be invested if it's a certain subject that you need to get a handle on.
Yeah, I like that. It's sort of like, hey, maybe AI is my central hub and my avenue to get more resources, but how can we make this, extend from just my time on the AI? I think a lot of people, after they ask the question and they read the output, they just, they turn off the phone or whatever, and they don't do that next piece of
Right,
exploring. Yeah.
right. They don't want to dive deeper into it. I mean, but that's what it's kind of designed to do, right? To be a shortcut, right? Like when Adobe pops up and it's like this document is long. Do you want AI to summarize it for you? And it just kills me, right? Because I'm just like, oh, I can't read this whole entire document. Oh, where I'm so helpless. It's fascinating, but again, yeah, that extra step is going to be important, because sometimes it's those minute details are the things that might be able to activate something in you that will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. All this discussion about technology and sexual literacy, as an educator yourself, if you could redesign our cultural approach to sex education, what is one thing that you would make sure everyone learns?
Hmm. Hmm. How do I make sure everyone learns? I would make sure everyone learns that in order for you to be successful in your relationships, there's elements that are very much needed, like loving, kind, respectful communication, trust, vulnerability, passion. Um, these are the things that sometimes I think people don't, um, co-creation, right?
Mm,
Co-creation. Um, these are things that people just don't think about. They usually think about you're attractive and I want to have sex with you. And then you have sex with them, and then they're like, ooh, I don't like this thing about you, or I don't like that thing about you, or we have different values, or like something's not right here. And
mm,
so we get into these cycles where we just don't get to know people longer or better, and we have these short attention spans. So we want to mimic what we've seen in the media, or in TV, or who we watch on social media because, everybody's posting their best life. So, um, I, yeah, I would say, yeah, just having all of those things I think are what's
Hmm.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah. Bringing in connection, bringing in vulnerability, trust. Trust. Yeah.
Hmm.
I love that. I hope that's going to happen, but what gives me hope is knowing professionals like you who are doing that work, who are bolstering the, I don't know, like information, vocabulary, different ways of approaching this. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love what I do. I love this work. So it's my favorite.
Yes. Well, thank you for your time, Marla. And before we close, how can our listeners stay in touch with the important work that you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. You can go on my website, velvetlipssexed.com, and you can find all of the information there. You can take my quiz, you can take some free classes. And on social media, it's Velvet Lips Sex Ed without the E in sex. And you can just Google me. You'll find me or whatever it is that you are thinking about. I'm sure maybe I've written a blog on it. So just check out my website and see if there's um, something that entices you.
I recommend it, dear listeners. Check Marla out. And thank you once more for having this conversation with me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.